celebrated this moment during war, during depression, and now during pandemic. Once again, all three branches of our government come together as the Constitution envisions. Once again, we renew our commitment to our determined democracy, forging a more perfect union. That theme for this inauguration, our determined democracy, forging a more perfect union, was announced by the Joint Committee before the election, with the belief that the United States can only fulfill its promise and set an example for others if we are always working to be better than we have been. The Constitution established that determined democracy with its first three words, declaring the people as the source of the government. The Articles of Confederation hadn't done that. The Magna Carta hadn't done that. Only the Constitution says the government exists because the people are the source of the reason it exists. They immediately followed those first three words with the words to form a more perfect union. The founders did not say to form a perfect union. They did not claim that in our new country nothing would need to be improved. Fortunately, they understood that always working to be better would be the hallmark of a great democracy. The freedoms we have today, the nation we have today, is not here just because it happened, and they aren't complete. A great democracy working through the successes and failures of our history, striving to be better than it had been. And we are more than we have been, and we are less than we hope to be. The assault on our Capitol at this very place just 2 weeks ago reminds us that a government designed to balance and check itself is both fragile and resilient. During the last year, the pandemic challenged our free and open society and called for extraordinary determination and sacrifice, and still challenges us today. Meeting that challenge head on have been and are healthcare workers, scientists, first responders, essential frontline workers, and so many others we depend on in so many ways. Today we come to this moment, people all over the world, as we're here, are watching and will watch what we do here. Our government comes together. The Congress and the courts join the transition of executive responsibility. One political party more pleased today and on every inaugural day than the other. But this is not a moment of division, it's a moment of unification. A new administration begins and brings with it a new beginning. And with that, our great national debate goes forward, and a determined democracy will continue to be essential in pursuit of a more perfect union and a better future for all Americans. What a privilege for me to join you today. Thank you. I'm pleased to call to the podium a longtime friend of the President-elect and his family, Father Leo O'Donovan, to lead us in an invocation. Please stand if you are able and remain standing for the national anthem and the pledge to our flag. Thank you, Senator. I'll have to step for me. Thank you.
Gracious and merciful God, at this sacred time we come before you in need, indeed on our knees. But we come still more with hope and with our eyes raised anew to the vision of a more perfect union in our land, a union of all our citizens to promote the general welfare and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. We are a people of many races, creeds, and colors, national backgrounds, cultures, and styles. now far more numerous and on land much vaster than when Archbishop John Carroll wrote his prayer for the inauguration of George Washington 232 years ago. Archbishop Carroll prayed that you, O Creator of all, would assist with your Holy Spirit of counsel and fortitude the President of these United States, that his administration may be conducted in righteousness and be eminently useful to your people. Today we confess our past failures to live according to our vision of equality, inclusion, and freedom for all. Yet we resolutely commit still more now to renewing the vision, to caring for one another in word and deed, especially the least fortunate among us, and so becoming a light for the world. There is a power in each and every one of us that lives by turning to every other one of us, a thrust of the Spirit to cherish and care and stand by others, and above all, those most in need. It is called love, and its path is to give ever more of itself. Today, it is called American patriotism, born not of power and privilege, but of care for the common good, with malice toward none and with charity for all. For our new president, we beg of you the wisdom Solomon sought when he knelt before you and prayed for an understanding heart so that I can govern your people and know the difference between right and wrong. We trust in the counsel of the letter of James. If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. Pope Francis has reminded us how important it is to dream together. By ourselves, he wrote, we risk seeing mirages, things that are not there. Dreams, on the other hand, are built together. Be with us, holy mystery of love, as we dream together. Help us under our new president to reconcile the people of our land, restore our dream and invest it with peace and justice and the joy that is the overflow of love. To the glory of your name, forever, amen.
Hi there. Please join me and Senator Nina Turner live right after Biden's inaugural address. We'll be watching alongside you all and then discussing how progressives can organize to ensure Biden delivers for the diverse working class coalition that got him elected. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you shortly.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing for the presentation of our national colors by the Armed Forces Color Guard, the singing of our national anthem, and for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ladies and gentlemen, here for the singing of our national anthem, accompanied by the President's own United States Marine Band, please welcome Lady Gaga.
Say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave on the land of the free and the hope of the
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome from the City of South Fulton, Georgia Fire and Rescue Department, President of the International Association of Firefighters, Local 3920, Fire Captain Andrea M. Hall, for the reciting of the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
What you are all about to be part of, America, is a historic moment of firsts. To administer the oath to our first African American, our first Asian American, and our first woman vice president, Kamala Harris, it is my great privilege to welcome to the inaugural stage the first Latina to ever serve on the Supreme Court of the United States of America, Justice Sonia Sotomayor.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing for the oath of office, followed by musical honors.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Kamala Davy Harris, do solemnly swear
I, Kamala Davy Harris, do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
that I take this obligation freely,
that I take this obligation freely,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
that I will well and faithfully discharge
that I will well and faithfully discharge
the duties of the office on which I am about to enter.
the duties of the office upon which I am about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Please welcome Jennifer Lopez to perform This Land Is Your Land and America the Beautiful, accompanied by members of the President's Own United States Marine Band.
This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Islands, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. As I went walking down that ribbon of highway, I saw above me that endless skyway. I saw below me that golden valley. This land was made for you and me. Oh, this land, oh, this land. This land was made for you and me. Oh, this land, oh, this land. This land was made for you and me. You and me. Oh, America, America, God shed His grace on thee and crowned thy good with brotherhood. From sea to shining sea. Una nación bajo Dios indivisible con libertad y justicia para todos.
Well, that was great. The sun is shining, and Mr. President-elect, this is the first inauguration in the history of America where J-Lo was the warm-up act for Chief Justice Roberts. With that, it is now my distinct honor to introduce the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States, John Roberts, to administer the presidential oath to the next President of the United States, Joseph R. Biden.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the oath of office, followed by musical honors.
Hi there. Please join me and Senator Nina Turner live right after Biden's inaugural address. We'll be watching alongside you all and then discussing how progressives can organize to ensure Biden delivers for the diverse working class coalition that got him elected. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you shortly.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., do solemnly swear
I, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States
office of President of the United States
and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States.
the Constitution of the United States.
So help you God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr.
Thank
President.
you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated.
Hi there. Please join me and Senator Nina Turner live right after Biden's inaugural address. We'll be watching alongside you all and then discussing how progressives can organize to ensure Biden delivers for the diverse working class coalition that got him elected. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you shortly.
My fellow Americans, a moment we have all been waiting for. It is now my great privilege and high honor to be the first person to officially introduce the 46th President of the United States, Joseph R. Biden, Jr.
Chief Justice Roberts, Vice President Harris, Speaker Pelosi, Leader Schumer, Leader McConnell, Vice President Pence, my distinguished guests, my fellow Americans. This is America's day. This is democracy's day, a day of history and hope, of renewal and resolve. Through a crucible for the ages, America has been tested anew, and America has risen to the challenge. Today, we celebrate the triumph not of a candidate, but of a cause, the cause of democracy. The people, the will of the people has been heard, and the will of the people has been heeded. We've learned again that democracy is precious. Democracy is fragile. And at this hour, my friends, democracy has prevailed. So now, on this hallowed ground where just a few days ago, violence sought to shake the Capitol's very foundation, we come together as one nation, under God, indivisible, to carry out the peaceful transfer of power as we have for more than 2 centuries. As we look ahead in our uniquely American way, restless, bold, optimistic, and set our sights on the nation we know we can be and we must be. I thank my predecessors of both parties for their presence here today. I thank them from the bottom of my heart. And I know the resilience of our Constitution and the strength of our nation, as does President Carter, who I spoke with last night, who cannot be with us today, but whom we salute for his lifetime in service. I've just taken the sacred oath each of those patriots have taken, the oath first sworn by George Washington. But the American story depends not on any one of us, not on some of us, but on all of us, on we, the people, who seek a more perfect union. This is a great nation. We are good people. And over the centuries, through storm and strife, in peace and in war, we've come so far, but we still have far to go. We'll press forward with speed and urgency, for we have much to do in this winter of peril and significant possibilities. Much to repair, much to restore, much to heal, much to build, and much to gain. Few people in our nation's history have been more challenged or found a time more challenging or difficult than the time we're in now. Once-in-a-century virus that silently stalks the country. It's taken as many lives in 1 year as America lost in all of World War II. Millions of jobs have been lost. Hundreds of thousands of businesses closed. A cry for racial justice, some 400 years in the making, moves us. The dream of justice for all will be deferred no longer. A cry for survival comes from the planet itself, a cry that can't be any more desperate or any more clear. And now, a rise of political extremism, white supremacy, domestic terrorism, that we must confront and we will defeat. To overcome these challenges, to restore the soul and secure the future of America requires so much more than words. It requires the most elusive of all things in a democracy: unity. Unity. In another January, on New Year's Day in 1863, Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation. When he put pen to paper, the president said, and I quote, "If my name ever goes down into history, it'll be for this act, and my whole soul is in it." My whole soul is in it. Today, on this January day, my whole soul is in this, bringing America together, uniting our people, uniting our nation. And I ask every American to join me in this cause. Uniting to fight the foes we face: anger, resentment and hatred, extremism, lawlessness, violence, disease, joblessness, and hopelessness. With unity, we can do great things, important things. We can right wrongs. We can put people to work in good jobs. We can teach our children in safe schools. We can overcome the deadly virus. We can reward work and rebuild the middle class and make healthcare secure for all. We can deliver racial justice, and we can make America once again the leading force for good in the world. I know speaking of unity can sound to some like a foolish fantasy these days. I know the forces that divide us are deep and they are real. But I also know they are not new. Our history has been a constant struggle between the American ideal that we're all are created equal and the harsh, ugly reality that racism, nativism, fear, demonization have long torn us apart. The battle is perennial, and victory is never assured. Through Civil War, the Great Depression, World War, 9/11, through struggle, sacrifice, and setbacks, our better angels have always prevailed. In each of these moments, enough of us have come together to carry all of us forward. And we can do that now. History, faith, and reason show the way of unity. We can see each other not as adversaries, but as neighbors. We can treat each other with dignity and respect. We can join forces, stop the shouting, and lower the temperature. For without unity, there is no peace, only bitterness and fury. No progress, only exhausting outrage. No nation, only a state of chaos. This is our historic moment of crisis and challenge. And unity is the path forward. And we must meet this moment as the United States of America. If we do that, I guarantee you we will not fail. We have never, ever, ever, ever failed in America. We've acted together. And so today, at this time, in this place, let's start afresh, all of us. Let's begin to listen to one another again, hear one another, see one another, show respect to one another. Politics doesn't have to be a raging fire, destroying everything in its path. Every disagreement doesn't have to be a cause for total war. And we must reject the culture in which facts themselves are manipulated and even manufactured. My fellow Americans, we have to be different than this. America has to be better than this. And I believe America is so much better than this. Just look around. Here we stand in the shadow of the Capitol Dome, as was mentioned earlier, completed amid the Civil War, when the Union itself was literally hanging in the balance. Yet we endured. We prevailed. Here we stand, looking out on the great mall where Dr. King spoke of his dream. Here we stand where 108 years ago, at another inaugural, thousands of protesters tried to block brave women marching for the right to vote. And today, we mark the swearing in of the first woman in American history elected to national office, Vice President Kamala Harris. Don't tell me things can't change. Here we stand across the Potomac from Arlington Cemetery, where heroes who gave the last full measure of devotion rest in eternal peace. And here we stand, just days after a riotous mob thought they could use violence to silence the will of the people, to stop the work of our democracy, to drive us from this sacred ground. It did not happen. It will never happen. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. Not ever. To all those who supported our campaign, I'm humbled by the faith you've placed in us. To all those who did not support us, let me say this. Hear me out as we move forward. Take a measure of me and my heart. If you still disagree, so be it. That's democracy. That's America. The right to dissent peaceably within the guardrails of our republic is perhaps this nation's greatest strength. Yet hear me clearly. Disagreement must not lead to disunion. And I pledge this to you. I will be a president for all Americans. All Americans. And I promise you, I will fight as hard for those who did not support me as for those who did. Many centuries ago, St. Augustine, a saint of my church, wrote that a people was a multitude defined by the common objects of their love. Defined by the common objects of their love. What are the common objects we as Americans love that define us as Americans? I think we know. Opportunity, security, liberty, dignity, respect, honor, and yes, the truth. Recent weeks and months have taught us a painful lesson. There is truth and there are lies. Lies told for power and for profit. And each of us has a duty and a responsibility as citizens, as Americans, and especially as leaders. Leaders who have pledged to honor our Constitution and protect our nation, to defend the truth and defeat the lies. Look, I understand that many of my fellow Americans view the future with fear and trepidation. I understand they worry about their jobs. I understand, like my dad, they lay at bed at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering, can I keep my health care? Can I pay my mortgage? Thinking about their families, about what comes next. I promise you, I get it. But the answer is not to turn inward, to retreat into competing factions, distrusting those who don't look like you, or worship the way you do, or don't get their news from the same sources you do. We must end this uncivil war that pits red against blue, rural versus urban, conservative versus liberal. We can do this if we open our souls instead of hardening our hearts, if we show a little tolerance and humility, and if we're willing to stand in the other person's shoes, as my mom would say, just for a moment, stand in their shoes. Because here's the thing about life. There's no accounting for what fate will deal you. Some days, when you need a hand. There are other days when we're called to lend a hand. That's how it has to be. It's what we do for one another. And if we are this way, our country will be stronger, more prosperous, more ready for the future. And we can still disagree. My fellow Americans, in the work ahead of us, we're going to need each other. We need all our strength to persevere through this dark winter. We're entering what may be the toughest and deadliest period of the virus. We must set aside politics and finally face this pandemic as one nation. One nation. And I promise you this, as the Bible says, weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning. We will get through this together. Together. Look, folks, all my colleagues I serve with in the House and the Senate up here, we all understand the world is watching all of us today. So here's my message to those beyond our borders. America has been tested, and we've come out stronger for it. We will repair our alliances and engage with the world once again, not to meet yesterday's challenges, but today's and tomorrow's challenges. And we'll lead not merely by the example of our power, but by the power of our example. We'll be a strong and trusted partner for peace, progress, and security. Look, you all know we've been through so much in this nation. And in my first act as president, I'd like to ask you to join me in a moment of silent prayer. Remember all those who we lost in this past year to the pandemic. Those 400,000 fellow Americans, moms, dads, husbands, wives, sons, daughters, friends, neighbors, and coworkers. We'll honor them by becoming the people and the nation we know we can and should be. So I ask you, let's say a silent prayer for those who've lost their lives and those left behind, and for our country. Amen. Folks, this is a time of testing. We face an attack on our democracy and on truth, a raging virus, growing inequity, the sting of systemic racism, a climate in crisis, America's role in the world. Any one of these would be enough to challenge us in profound ways. But the fact is, we face them all at once, presenting this nation with one of the gravest responsibilities we've had. Now we're going to be tested. Are we going to step up? All of us? It's time for boldness, for there is so much to do. And this is certain. I promise you, we will be judged, you and I, by how we resolve these cascading crises of our era. We will rise to the occasion is the question. Will we master this rare and difficult hour? Will we meet our obligations and pass along a new and better world to our children? I believe we must. I'm sure you do as well. I believe we will. And when we do, we'll write the next great chapter in the history of the United States of America, the American story. A story that might sound something like a song that means a lot to me. It's called American Anthem. There's one verse that stands out, at least for me, and it goes like this. The work and prayers of century have brought us to this day. What shall be our legacy? What will our children say? Let me know in my heart when my days are through. America, America, I gave my best to you. Let's us add our own work and prayers to the unfolding story of our great nation. If we do this, then when our days are through, our children and our children's children will say of us, they gave their best They did their duty. They healed a broken land. My fellow Americans, I close the day where I began, with the sacred oath. Before God and all of you, I give you my word. I will always level with you. I will defend the Constitution. I'll defend our democracy. I'll defend America. And I'll give all of you, keep everything I do in your service, thinking not of power, but of possibilities, not of personal interest, but the public good. And together we shall write an American story of hope, not fear, of unity, not division, of light, not darkness, a story of decency and dignity, love and healing, greatness and goodness. May this be the story that guides us, the story that inspires us, and the story that tells ages yet to come that we answered the call of history. We met the moment. Democracy and hope, truth and justice did not die on our watch, but thrived. That America secured liberty at home and stood once again as a beacon to the world. That is what we owe our forebears, one another, and generation to follow. So, with purpose and resolve, we turn to those tasks of our time, sustained by faith, driven by conviction, and devoted to one another and the country we love with all our hearts. May God bless America, and may God protect our troops. Thank you, America.
That was our new president, Joseph Biden. And I don't know about you, Nina Turner, Senator Nina Turner, who is joining me today, former Democratic member of the Ohio State Senate. Senator Turner, I don't know about you, but I really looked and heard that speech as a very, very emotional one. I was I've heard a lot of inaugural speeches in my time, in my years. It was not the most eloquent, but given that exactly 2 weeks ago, the Capitol was stormed, exactly 2 weeks ago was kind of the culmination of one of the darkest periods in American history in terms of a president who was divisive and angry and tried to really pour salt in all of our wounds. I thought Joe Biden really was a terrific antidote to all of that. Well, what do you think? Nina Turner, thank you for joining this conversation.
Thanks, Dr. Reich. Yeah, the speech was poignant. It was right on time. It was definitely what the American people needed to hear. And I think there was a little bit in there for everybody, or for most people. I won't necessarily say everybody, but for most people. It was the thing that really stood out for me was the words time of testing, that the new president said this is a time of testing on many levels, and we're either going to meet that test or not meet that test. But it was a very good speech. I have to give it to him.
Well, if there was one overarching theme, it was a theme of unity. I mean, he probably used the word unity, maybe I counted at least 12 times, maybe there were more. But this was a speech that was very much in response to not only what happened 2 weeks ago, but I felt the entire Trump administration, the whole 4 years we've been through. This was a speech that was intended to not heal, because those wounds can't be healed overnight, but to begin the healing process. But here's a question I have for you. Is there going to be a honeymoon? Is Joe Biden going to start his presidency today and say, well, I can relax now, we can all relax, we're going to have a honeymoon? Or is there not going to be any presidential honeymoon?
There shouldn't be a honeymoon. We just don't have time for that. And the working class coalition that elected him, people of color, young people, as we know, the Black community showed up and showed out in many powerful ways, and not just for his presidency. Shout out to Vice President Harris, making tremendous history in this country today. That coalition that elected them both have a demand, and they need to reap the benefits of their work, and that has to happen immediately because of the pandemic and the nature of that pandemic and how it has laid siege on not just us in this country but all over the world. It demands rapid response. And so unlike other administrations where we may have had the luxury of a honeymoon, there is no luxury for a honeymoon at this moment. And I want to say to Roots Action, who is actually pushing very hard this no honeymoon, they also on the other side of this was pushing to vote out Trump. I really do agree with what progressives like Roots Action and other organizations are saying. This is a beautiful thing. Trump is out. Now let's get to work. No honeymoon.
Now
we can't afford
now
it.
let's get to work. I think that really is the issue. Progressives across America right now have got to see this as the beginning, not the end, and the beginning right today, not next week and not 2 weeks from now. And it's not just the pandemic, it's everything. It has to do with the environment, systemic racism, police brutality, all of the issues that worsened and all of the issues that were not addressed during the last 4 years, in fact, have not been addressed for many years. But let me just ask you, Senator Turner, in terms of holding this administration, Joe Biden and his administration, feet to the fire, what do progressives do? I mean, what are the techniques that we ought to be employing? I have my ideas, but I want to hear yours.
Yeah, we definitely have to unite, Dr. Reich. There are many progressive organizations, millions of progressive people out there, but our power and our influence has to come together in a way that creates the kind of synergy that is organized. You know, just to quote my dear brother, Michael Render, AKA Killer Mike, we got to plot, plan, organize, strategize, and mobilize. That is what must happen so that the progressive movement and the people within that movement are poised to not only make the demand, but to also ensure that there's a return on this investment. See, the voters made an investment and they need a return on it. And so the progressive movement is the very movement that is set to be able to make sure that they deliver, that this administration delivers.
And the other point about the necessity of moving forward quickly is not just the pandemic and all these other issues that have not been addressed, but it's also that you've got, sad to say, a very vicious united right wing. If it's not united, they certainly have elements that are quite aggressive. And they are not going to wait. They're not going to give Biden a honeymoon unless progressives push very, very hard. The status quo, the moneyed interests, the right wing, all of them are going to be really having the upper hand. I think it's important to set the agenda, to support not only Biden's agenda, but also to push Biden to do more. For example, that $1.9 trillion stimulus package, I think is a good beginning, but it's just a beginning. I mean, there are a lot of things that are not in there that need to be addressed. Do you agree?
That's exactly right, Dr. Reich. And, you know, people need relief. I mean, the first stimulus, if you will, March, and then, you know, the American people have been waiting this long to get back a return on it's their money. And I do want us as Americans to understand that on any level of government, when our tax dollars, when the money that we collectively put on in a pot is being returned to the people, it is not politicians being kind or doing you a favor. It is your money. So what is our social contract? Our social contract in this moment, the maelstrom of pain that people are feeling right now. They were feeling it before the pandemic. They are, to quote my grandmother, sure enough feeling it right now, is to do the right thing. The $2,000 check right now, today, Dr. Reich, I want to see those checks mailed out or electronically put in people's bank accounts today. And that leadership in both chambers and this administration comes to grips with the needs of the people, and they need $2,000 every single month. Why can't we do? And Dr. Rice, you talk about this all the time, and we got countries like Japan, we got Canada and others. We need to we haven't set the example when it comes to that. We're behind when it comes to making sure that we shore up individuals in this country and also small businesses in this country so that people can stay employed and still feel vibrant, even with the pressures of the pandemic bearing down on them.
And a lot of the issues, such as paid sick leave, the $2,000 that you just referred to in terms of what people actually need, expanded unemployment insurance, all of these, are important during the pandemic, but they are also important, many of them, in terms of a kind of permanent foundation for people in this country. It's not a matter of just getting by the pandemic, I don't think. I think we need a safety net in this country, including healthcare, that is really up to what a nation like our nation not only needs, but can afford. And that's something else that we need to be pushing for. But let me ask you something else. We in Congress right now have a Biden has a very tiny minority. Democrats have a very, very slim majority. And the margin is so small that many people are saying, and I hear it even today, I heard it last week, Joe Biden is going to have to govern as a centrist, because he's going to need those, every Democratic vote, including Joe Manchin in West Virginia. He's going to need to peel off some Republicans. There's no way of getting anything done. What's your response to that? I'll give you mine.
No,
I want to hear you first.
No, sir, Dr. Reich. No, sir. No governing from the middle. The candidates, using Georgia as an example, campaign on that $2,000. I'm just using that as an example. We cannot afford to disappoint the American people. We have midterm elections coming up in 2022. This thing is going to go so daggone fast, and we will risk, those of us who are committed to doing the right thing, the Democratic Party will lose if they govern from the middle. And you're absolutely right in your observation of the pandemic that we are enduring is one thing. So we got to have restoration. We got to deal with I look at it through the lens of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So we got to deal with that right now. But Dr. Reich, I don't want to lead a point that you made, that this is not just about this moment. Things that we're doing right now or need to do right now in the face of a pandemic are things that we should have done generations ago. There's promise in this problem, and it gives all of us the opportunity, who are thinking progressively or not, to actually deliver for the American people in this time, in this generation. The fierce urgency of now, as the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said many years ago, fierce urgency of right now. So no moderating from the middle. The middle does not get people to what they need right now and into the future. Doc, we are in the second, this is the Gilded Age all over again. And you're far better. You talk about that far better than I do, but we can't relent on this.
Well, you can't really lead from the middle. I think the point that you are making and I am making is that in order to build the kind of coalition to deliver to the people of color, to the working class, to this extraordinary number of people who are believing in the necessity for change, for restructuring our economy, you can't just try to pick off a few votes from conservatives. You've got to actually animate the public. You've got to mobilize and organize and get people appropriately excited about what can be done, and not wait for Congress, not wait for the conservatives, not wait for the Republicans, not wait for the Joe Manchins. You lead by showing what is possible and getting people excited about what is possible and what needs to be done. Let me just ask you one other question, because our time is limited. You, Nina Turner, you are running for Congress, and I want to thank you for that. But I want to just ask you a personal question. I mean, you were co-chairman of Bernie Sanders' campaign. You've been around politics. You were a Democratic member of the Ohio State Senate. You're jumping into national politics in a very big way. You've already been a national leader. Why are you doing it?
The needs are great, Dr. Reich, and I see my run as a continuation of the work that I've done from the time that I worked for a mayor in the city of Cleveland, served as a Cleveland City Councilwoman, as you laid out, was a state senator, was Democratic nominee for Secretary of State in 2014, beating back against one of the worst secretaries of state in the country. This is a ministry. And we need more people running for office on all levels of government, but particularly the Congress is uniquely positioned. And for a time such as this, that my type of leadership is necessary. You know, I consider myself a Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm type Democrat, unbought and unbossed, a Fannie Lou Hamer type of Democrat, sick and tired of being sick and tired, and even the greats that laid the foundation for somebody like me to be able to run for this office, the Honorable Carl B. Stokes, the first African-American mayor of a major city, and then his brother, Congressman Lewis Stokes, the first African-American congressman from this district, the Honorable Congresswoman Stephanie Tubbs Jones, and then my Congresswoman, who is our district is blessed in our state, Marsha Fudge, who will be confirmed by that Senate to be the next Secretary of HUD. There is a rich tradition in my district, Dr. Reich, and we of fighters, of champions standing up for what is just, for what is right, and for what is good. And I want to not only continue that legacy, but take it higher. Lord, keep lifting me higher. I am going to use every single thing in my being to serve the poor, the working poor, and the barely middle class in the 11th congressional district, and by extension, serve this nation. And Doc, while you say, you got me thinking. And, we just left MLK, or not just left the day, but, we celebrated Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday. That should mean something. This is not just artificial and just saying the words because they sound good, but there's something. There are two quotes by which the foundation of my campaign is about. One is Congresswoman Barbara Jordan. What the people want is simple. They want an America as good as its promise. Those are the kinds of things that you and I talk about on a regular basis. What is an America as good as its promise? It's not having people sleep outside in the streets at night. It is making sure that people have health care. It is making sure that people have food to eat. It's clean water, clean air, clean food. Those are the basics. But this one, Dr. Reich, and I want to hear your response to this, that the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, this got me. And these words: power without love is reckless and abusive, and love without power is sentimental and anemic. Power at its best is love implementing the demands, keyword, the demands of justice. And justice at its best is power correcting everything that stands against love. Doc, that's why I'm running.
Amen to that. The other thing that a piece of that, and a piece of that formula in terms of uniting love and power and organizing and mobilizing people around those principles, a big piece is also fighting the powerful, fighting the centers of wealth and also the centers of selfishness. I mean, one thing that impresses me about your campaign is that you are not taking any corporate PAC money. You're not taking lobbyist money. I think that's critically important, not only in your district, but also important all around the country, because the only way I have seen people of color and also the white working class and the poor coming together and organizing and mobilizing, getting the kind of power they need, is if they don't take the money from the very, very wealthy, from the big corporations, from the PACs. That is a kind of underlying reality here, that the real issue is not so much a fight between the traditional left and the traditional right. The real issue is a fight between democracy and oligarchy, between democracy and fascism, between democracy and the forces that are not only the moneyed interests, but also the forces of dictatorship. And I want to salute you, Nina Turner, for throwing your hat in the ring. It's not easy to do that. And I want to urge everybody else watching, not only to support Nina Turner, but also to yourself get more involved in our democracy. Now is our chance. Now is our time. It's been 4 long years of bleakness, of nightmarish divisiveness. Nobody has mentioned today, and I was interested that Joe Biden did not mention his name, and we have not mentioned his name. And the name is, and it's the last time I'm going to actually utter his name, because it has to be uttered as a symbol of what was wrong and what is wrong with America. His name is Donald Trump. He was not there today at the inauguration. His absence, I think, was a symbol of why we have to not only look forward, but also recognize what he did and what he meant and what he actually, and all aspects of him have to be rejected, and how many of his supporters are still out there fulminating, angry, the importance of making sure they understand they have a stake in joining with us to build the future. I think that's what Joe Biden's communication was all about. We're not going to get many of them. We're not going to get most of them, maybe. But until they understand that we're all in this together, it's going to be very, very hard to move forward. Nina Turner, I love you. It's just wonderful to see you. If there's anything I can do to help you in your congressional campaign, never resist giving me a call. But let's continue to talk because, kindred spirits are wonderful to behold.
We are, Dr. Reich, and I love you too. And I want to encourage people to go to my website, ninaturner.com. Time, talent, and treasure. We are all in this together. And Doc, you are so right. We can't forget that 74 million people voted for the man whose name you just uttered. And there has to be a reckoning, a reconciliation, a reckoning, a repair in this country. The worst of the worst must be dealt with. We can't tolerate white supremacy and the type of bigotry, the pain that has been rained on this society. It was all that bubbling up. It is a lesson to us, however, this is the point I want to make, is that just as what we saw on the Capitol was there, and it was fomented by a president who took great pleasure in that kind of division, we also have to have a reckoning that many of that bubbling up has been there all along. It's been latent. And until we as a nation deal with that latency, we're always going to have moments where that kind of bubbling comes up. So we have to have a reckoning to deal with the fissures in this country and the unfinished business of our nation. We can do that, and we must do that together.
Truth and reconciliation, a reckoning. Nina Turner, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Reich.